Hi, this is Carson with Troy, and I have with me Tori, Diederich, Lundell. Now, Tori is a first-time author. Her debut author, Sand Soul, which I'm showing now for people who are watching the video. It looks fantastic. Tori, this came out last year. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Sand Soul.
All right. Well, I am, as he said, Tori Diederich Lundell, and I have a huge passion for imagination and dreams. And so I wanted to combine those things. And so I wrote a retelling of The Sandman. So I wanted it to incorporate Brothers Grimm fairy tales because my family is actually, my grandfather was during World War II, was in Germany, Kassel, Germany, where the Brothers Grimm wrote their fairy tales. And so I've got it running through my veins. And so I read and write very Brothers Grimm vibes with a more like family friendly kind of vibe, so that like my 10-year-old is starting to read my book, which is really exciting. And so what it is, it's about the Sandman. He is actually cursed. He was Morpheus, the god of dreams. You know mythology, and like mythology, which I do love as well, he is a god. So but he was the god of dreams, but he was given this punishment to be the Sandman for doing something wrong that you will find out through the book. And he has to go about during World War II giving dreams upon those who have lost hope and all those things. Okay. And he also fights evil demons, spirits who are trying to give you horrible, awful nightmares during these times that usually you get those kind of nightmares when hard times are coming in. So he's kind of the light in mind because it's depicted a lot that the Sandman can be good and bad. So I wanted him to be right in that middle because you need light and darkness to be able to like live through life. And so it is about World War II, which I love because actually there's a lot of true stories depicted in my novel from my grandfather, from him growing up, because he lived during those times and really hard times. And I wanted to get that perspective because I'm like, it was a world war. We were all fighting against each other. So I wanted to be like, okay, there is good in these times. And so I wanted to bring that out. And it's about a girl too who unexpectedly can visit his dream world. And that's not common. No one can go into his dream world, just like your dream world.
Right.
So she is there and she kind of breaks those lonely chains that bind him. And they go on this huge adventure, drawn into all these adventures, fairy tales and nightmares. And they have to roam and do unimaginable things and go against unimaginable horrors. And so it's kind of like, if you like Brothers Grimm vibes, this is totally your book and kind of like young adult fantasy romance. So yeah, and so I wanted to really depict things from my life into my book, as well as just like I got a lot of different outputs from other people, and it's got a special place in my heart. So I'm pretty excited about it. So I hope that it gets somewhere, and if it doesn't, that's okay. If it just touches one person's life and helps them, then I am satisfied. So yes.
That's awesome. It sounds like a fun book. I picked this up last month when I met you. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm excited to. Hopefully, when I see it at Fanx, I'll be able to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is so awesome!"
I'm so excited. Yes,
No,
we'll be at FanX. I can't even wait. I'm so excited for that.
so yeah, when did you start writing this novel?
I actually started writing it in 2020 when COVID hit. So it was like during the time I had stopped working in the medical field because I just my third child, and I was kind of like in a situation where I couldn't have babysitters. And so I was home. And I'm someone who likes to go and do things. I know that's not typical for a writer, but I'm very hands-on person. And so my husband bought me a notebook because I was kind of getting lost in what I was supposed to be doing. I mean, I love being a mother, but you all have your own selves as well. And so I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Gave me a notebook, and he's like, "You've always wanted to write. You've always had a passion." And I've never really like just sat down and just gone for it, but I just sat down and I went for it. So I was very like drawn into it, and it just rolled because I always had this thing growing in my mind about the Sandman and kind of wanting to depict my own way of who he was, because there's like you've got the like comic version and you have the mythology version, and I wanted to kind of create my own
Hmm.
because dreams are such a fascinating thing to me, and I did a lot of research. And because if you ever had a dream and you're just like, oh my gosh, like what put that in my mind? What put that in my mind? And it's like your life kind of builds upon like what's going to happen. And your dreams are kind of like a question in your head that haven't really been answered yet, but yet it's answering them in your dreams.
Right.
It's kind of a cool concept. So yes, so I started writing it about 3 years ago, and then I ended up signing with Covenant Books, and so that was pretty cool. They're like a hybrid publisher company. They're kind of in between like a traditional and self-publishing one or whatever. So they're really great. They help market it and do those things, but I'm a big part of marketing as well for it. So it's been quite an adventure. It has been
Right.
fun. Yeah.
No, that's exciting. Anytime that you have something in your head and you can get it out in the real world, it's a fantastic thing. It's an amazing thing. Now let's talk about Covenant Books. Like you said, it's kind of a hybrid. So
Mm-hmm.
if somebody wants to go that route, what sort of things do they handle, and what sort of things do you handle? How involved are you?
Yes, so they are a company. So when they mean hybrid, you can do traditional type route, or because they have to choose your manuscript, and that's kind of what I did. I turned it in, and they have to know if they want it or not. Or they
Right.
help with self-publishers as well. So if you want to self-publish, they will help you. Um, you pay a certain amount with depending the route you take, and then you end up getting all of the rewards of they will not take any money from you afterwards. And so it's kind of like you pay a little bit up front for certain like self-publishing, and then you get the reward. They will not take anything from you until a certain point, until you have made up what you've paid them. So it's a great, so if you're like thinking and you're getting constantly turned down by these major traditional companies, which it's really hard to get into, but
Hmm.
it's every writer's dream. And so it's sometimes hard, and self-publishing, hands down to those, like it is amazing what they can do. There's things that I have like watched and I'm like, they are amazing. Like they do it all. I mean, I'm I'm not that talented when it comes to like computers, and that was my hardest thing. And so when I did turn it in to Covenant Books, I tried the traditional kind of hybrid route, and they ended up taking it, which I was pretty excited about because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I could do all this, because they did everything for me, and I just accepted it and went through the work and okayed everything. Like they had an artist for me, and they had all these things for me, so it was great. And then I have a publishing assistant that handles everything for me. So if I want to like get it out somewhere, he'll go and talk to them. And I did not have an agent with this. So if you want, you can get an agent. It probably will be beneficial too for a lot of marketing reasons. But I wanted to kind of like half market my own book. So they half market it. So they created like a trailer for my book, and then they did an interview, and then they put it out into like Barnes and Noble, iTunes, Amazon, and a bunch of other outlets and different bookstores in South Carolina as well, because that's where they are established. And so it was a really cool experience, and having an assistant publisher helped me so much. But it's also given me a little bit more freedom that I can like market what I want, kind of say what I want, and do, and not have specifics them saying you have to do this kind of thing. So I really like the route I chose. It's been really good, and I've really liked the work that they've done. Like they've been helpful. They have a whole page that I log into that I can follow every step. I have everything saved, so it's like everything is very professional. So I've loved it, and they've handled my sales page, and they have everything written out for me. So it's like if I want to do a book signing, all I have to do is send it into that bookstore, and then they purchase the books from Covenant Books, and so they'll have them ready there for the book signings that I've done at Barnes and Noble. So it's pretty fun. It's like kind of dream worthy in my opinion. So yes.
Nice. And for those people who get overwhelmed looking at self-publishing and go, oh man, I have to find an editor, an artist, and try to market all this stuff. It's a good route for those people who might, not want to take on the pressure of that. So that's
Yes. So they call it like hybrid. There's so many different things that I didn't realize, that I was like, oh, there's so many different ways to be able to publish your work.
right.
And for someone like me with a mother of three boys, I was like, I don't know if I can get all of this done right and like do it justice. But there are like those hardcore people that are like go-getters that I'm like, I think it's amazing when you can self-publish. And I wanted to help market it. So I was pretty excited that I found this hybrid marketing kind of publisher situation. And I really do enjoy Covenant Books because there's a lot of scammer people out there too. So you have to be careful with that. So just make sure that they have like the, what is it? It's like the certification that you have to check to make sure. And so
Mhm.
my husband is in computers, so he made sure everything was legit. So just make sure it's the Covenant Books that has like the okay from like a certification of being a publisher. So
It's
that's
also
something to
nice.
watch for.
It's also nice for you to do signings and stuff where you don't have to purchase your books and take them. Like the store
Mm-hmm.
orders them and has your inventory there for you.
Yes. So they take a percentage and then I get a percentage. So
Right.
it's like it's great. It's great working with them too. And the managers at the Barnes and Noble stores in Utah so far have been amazing. Like they have been great. They work with you so well. They're like, okay, how many do you think we need to order? And then you'll order this much. And they're great. They've been great. And I've actually applied to do some book signings in New York. So we'll see how
Oh,
that
nice.
goes. So yes, pretty
I know for
excited.
self-publishers, like sometimes to get in those stores is kind of hard for them, but like Covenant has a way, or I know
Yeah.
there's other different hybrid publishers out there too. I know I interviewed a guy from Phoenix who has one that's locally there that does that for him. So like, Covenant's not the only one, but it's a
Yes.
different route that people can do, and it helps them get into bookstores easier than maybe a self-published author can.
Yes, and even if you like self-publish something, you can still talk to some of those hybrid publishers and just see if you can get in. And if they don't accept you, they'll still help you with the self-publishing process, which is nice. So I'm like that. I liked it because I just felt overwhelmed at first. Like, okay, I think I'm going to self-publish because I've been turned down by most the big wig traditional companies, right? I
Hmm.
mean, they're great if you can get it. I think it's amazing when people can get into those traditional companies, but it is a lot of waiting. Like I would turn it in and maybe even like 6 months later I'd hear back, So it's like, and sometimes you don't want to turn in 20 at a time because you don't want to cause problems or issues. And so just a longer process. And it's
Right.
like, you can still do it even if you have that passion, but you can also do your self-publishing or your hybrid publishing traditionally wise. Or so there's so many ways to get your work out there that I'm like, don't let anybody put you down in any way. Just do what you want to do, in my opinion.
That's exactly right. Now, I want to go back to something you said earlier. Your husband bought you a notebook. So, did you start writing on a notebook? And how much was that before you went to the computer?
Oh, yes. So I like handwriting. It's kind of a pain sometimes. And I'm like, okay, I write all this stuff and then I have to type it all out, right? So, but I am a handwriter. Like, I will. So he would buy all these notebooks for me. And my mother even bought me some notebooks and I would just write. And that's when I started. So I have all these notebooks just full of all of my imagination just coming out on my pages because I just like to write. Horrible at punctuation. That's why I really needed an editor. So my punctuation is like run on sentences after run on sentences because I just write. So yes, I love handwriting because I have a notebook by the side of my bed. And if I wake up and I have an idea, I write it down. Like I am like, it's just everything seems to flow better. And then once I get the flow, it's easier to start like typing the rest of my work. So that I get to like, I would say I write about I would say about 10,000 words on paper before I even begin to do my typing. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
it's different for everybody. I'm such a handwritten person. And typing was always, like I said, computers and anything related has always been a weakness of mine, but I've had to push through it. And now it's a little easier to like start like, okay, I can imagine this. And then sometimes I write it down to just make sure it makes sense because everyone's, ways are different of how they do things. And so yeah, I would write it down before, and then my husband bought me a nicer laptop so that I could do those things. He is an ethical hacker, and so he's very into computers. So he was like, "Okay, we got to get you this, we got to get this." And I'm like, "I don't know how to do this." So it's pretty awesome. We work with each other. He's helped me a lot trying to turn in things as well and make sure everything looks good on the computer. So because I'm such a old fashioned handwriter person. I don't know what it is, but it's where I flow the best is on paper. So yeah.
Well, I know people that go to like say Barnes and Noble or library or something and take their laptop, but like a notebook is so much more portable that you can be anywhere and have it with you in your.
Like
I
even
mean,
a
I used to
small
carry
one.
like a little, yeah, like
Yes. I've had I my first one, sorry, I just shook my table. It was like a smaller notebook, like something to take notes and something to like create a web of thought through. And it just like it filled up so fast. I was like, oh my gosh, like it is just flowing. And then after you go to type it, it's like, oh my gosh, I thought it was so much longer. That's one thing that's really hard about writing because I'm like writing on paper. I'm like, wait, I swear this was a book already.
right.
So
It's
But
like 50 pages of notebook and it's like 2 pages typed, and you're like, what the
pretty
heck?
much, pretty much. That's pretty much what it is. I'm a slow typer. I'm like, so that's what takes me the longest is just getting it on my computer. So
So when you started, were you more like a free writer, were you just kind of like a pantser, or did you have an outline to go off of, or what do you do now?
Well, I like to free write mostly, but I always have some. I've had this idea in my head for a very long time, and it just kind of flowed. I did create like make sure things set up to make sure the storyline made sense. So that took a lot of time, but I like to. It just kind of flows with me. That's kind of how I do it. Like I'm like sometimes I'll be like I'm stuck. I'm gonna write some ideas down, see if they even make sense for this, and then sometimes they just come out. And I'm like, okay, that was pretty good. That's working for me. So yes, I would say more like freelance. I just go.
You just go.
It just flows usually. I'm not huge. Like I remember when I was in high school and college, and I'd have to like write out every web thing when I just wanted to write it.
Right.
I just wanted to just go instead of taking that first process. And so sometimes I have to just to make sure I'm not missing anything. So, because that's pretty easy to do when you're writing a
Mhm.
book as well, like do a
Right.
wrong name or do a wrong eye color. And so it's really nice to have an editor for that. I will say that much because editing is probably actually one of the hardest things. Probably one of the hardest things. And so I was grateful to have an editor for that. And they did everything. They planned everything, got everything, and I was like, oh, that makes sense why they would edit that. Oh, that makes sense. I would have never caught it. I would have never caught it if they hadn't. So editing is huge because you don't want sloppy writing either.
Right.
Because sometimes when you're just writing, it can be a little bit sloppy. And so editing with having a storyline, making sure everything makes sense and flows is like the biggest thing that any publisher will look at. It has to make sense. They don't care about punctuation and those things at first because you'll have an editor if you do hybrid or traditional for you. And so I would say to make sure the storyline makes sense, especially if you're self-publishing, maybe hire somebody just to do the storyline edit.
Well, that's great advice. So I'm going to ask you kind of three different questions in this question. So, what have been some of your challenges? What have been some of the things that have surprised you, and what have been some of your successes?
Right. Well, the hardest thing I would say was editing. There's times when even when people sent me over the edits, I had to okay it and I had to go through it. And it was harder. I was like, this is like impossible. And then sometimes they gave me opinion, like maybe take this out. And I wasn't comfortable with that. I'm like, I want to keep that. And I kept it. So there's some things that you have to say, okay, like, am I okay with them writing this book or is it my work? That was my hardest. Is there I mean, some of their advice was amazing, right? Some I was like, yes, like I agree. But some, if you don't want to do something, I would say just don't stress about it because I did. I'm like, they're the professionals. They know what they're doing. And then I was told saying, this is your baby. You need to make sure that you like the story first. And I was like, oh, okay. So that was the biggest thing. Probably my biggest struggles and stresses was that. Also being turned down by traditional publishers was really hard because I would be like, I got this, like, this is great. And then you turn in, you're like, oh, they're like, sorry, not looking at time because they have hundreds of people that are looking at it. And if it's not that person, if they don't like that particular story, it's not going to be chosen. But there could
Right.
be someone like literally next to them that would have chosen it. So it's kind of in the air. And I was really excited when Covenant Books, they decided to go with my story because I was like, at first I thought it was a scam. I did. I 100% because I turned it in, but I'm like, well, maybe I turned it into the wrong place. Like maybe this is bad. Like I just had been turned down so many times that I was like, it's not real. And so I made my husband go and legit check everything online because that's his job. And so he looked, he's like, nope, they're legit. And I was like, and so that was probably one of my most exciting moments was being chosen by somebody like that will help me through my work and get my work published. So that was, and then what was the third?
Oh, challenges, surprises, and successes.
All right. Well, the success, definitely that. And then my first book signing at Barnes and Noble was pretty dang exciting. Like you go in and you're like, I buy books here. Like I have my book coming out and it's just so exciting. And then I actually had artwork done too that just made my pages come to life. So a Crown of Night Art did my did all of my art, and she did it all by hand. She sent me every step, every detail. It was amazing. Like that was one of the coolest things, seeing my characters come to life. So like one of my characters I have here. So, and they're little page inlays, and they're kind of see-through. And
Oh,
this is my
nice.
witch Lilith from my book, if you're
That's
interested.
fantastic. That's
And
awesome.
there is a folklore from Germany about the witches in the woods in the Black Forest. So I did encrypt that in my book. So, but that was really cool. And the success, just seeing people comment about, like, even if they were, I haven't gotten a ton of negatives. There's some people like, oh my gosh, you needed to make it longer. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, it took me forever, but I understand what you're saying. And you do get the negative comments, and that's hard. But at the same time, in return, like I just look at the positive side too. I'm like, you know what? The negatives help me know what I want to fix, maybe, or to, challenge, be like, it's okay. It's what they think. And I think that's great. And then the amazing reviews that I've gotten too, it's been great. Like just hearing what people think about what I put into this story is it's just amazing. And I've gotten some reviews being like, oh my gosh, I love this character. I relate to this character, this. And I'm just like, it's just amazing being able to see, always wanting to be like J.K. Rowling, and you're like, somebody likes my work. Just at least one person likes my
Right.
work. And it just means the world. So that was a huge accomplishment. Just having other people like dive into my imagination is pretty cool. It's also intimidating, but it's amazing at the same time. Yeah.
So you've already mentioned previously, some of the influence, grim fairy tales, mythology, even your German heritage. What are some other influences that you've had that made you want to decide to become a writer?
So I did write a poem when I was in ninth grade called Imagination. And it literally was just the definition of imagination. And at that point, I was like, you know what? It stemmed from something. And I was always more the side of doing the creative things and doing the writing and just history. I was horrible at math and doing those things. I was, so it's like I was very that side of doing things. And every time I did a sci-fi fiction fantasy class that I loved, and like writing classes were like my happiness kind of thing. And growing up when I was little, I always made up stories. I loved to make up stories in reality, just being like, oh, I have this, little white lies, but they created huge stories, And my grandma always told me, she's like, oh my gosh, you have an imagination. Like you can really just blow it up there, can't you? And I'm like, yeah. And so I've always had this passion. And I've always like ever since my first book that was like my major fiction like love was Aragon from Christopher Polani.
Hmm.
And I remember almost being embarrassed at first because fiction wasn't a huge thing when I was in school, to be honest. It just wasn't in. And so I would put like covers over it. You remember those book covers? And but I was so passionate about it. And I'm like, and now I'm like, why did I hide that passion? This is why I'm like, I've got to make sure that my kids and everyone knows, if you have a passion, just show it. Don't be embarrassed by it. Don't, it was just like the weirdest thing. And what stemmed my want to write the poem. And that was published in an anthology when I was in ninth grade. And and then I've also done a political piece. Um, that was published in the newspapers when I was, I believe, in 10th grade. And it's just like, I just loved writing. I loved expressing myself through writing. I am a talker, so I do like talking about it, but I just love expressing kind of my thoughts. And so, and I love hearing like different people's, like I've read so many fun young adult fantasies or different fiction novels that have just been like this is amazing. Like they thought of this, and it is like insane how amazing this is. And so it's just really cool to hear other people's work and how it just can stem from a tiny little thing, and that they have like come open and being like, you know what, I'm going to share my work. I don't care what people think. And it's just like you get to see fan bases like the Sarah J. Maas books for the
Hmm.
Court of Thorn and Roses. Like you see like so much like fandom there, and like people are creating so many things from that. It's just really cool to see like that fantasy and fantasy fiction is just coming like and becoming huge and so wanted, because sometimes it's nice to escape reality. I think in some ways I've always preferred fantasy over, the nonfiction. So I think it's pretty cool that that people are so open to letting their imagination flow. So yeah, I like
Yeah,
it.
I'm like you. Like when I was a kid in the late 80s, early 90s, like I had to hide my fantasy book. Well, I didn't hide it, but like people were like, "Why are you reading that thick book?" Like nobody like it
I
was weird. It
know.
was a it
I'm
was
like,
an
that's so sad.
anomaly.
Now everyone's like, yes, fiction. I'm like, finally.
I
And I'm like,
know.
I'm sad that I felt that way when I was younger because I loved it. I loved it. I'm like, why can't I have just said, well, I love it. I don't care what people think. I'm kind of glad that times have changed that way, that it's not so like you don't have to stay so bottled in from your passions anymore. So I really enjoy it. And so I wrote my fiction book and I'm showing it all over without any covers. So I'm like, yes. So it's pretty awesome. It is.
That is awesome. So, I mean, becoming a writer, you have to stay consistent for a long time to have a book out. What are some of your habits?
So I'm very mood writer. So when I say mood writer and reader, I mean like if I'm in a certain mood, I write certain things or I read certain books. And sometimes I go a span of not writing or reading. And sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I not doing this? And why am I not feeling this? But at the same time, I'm trying to remember the girl. She is a self publisher, but she was saying she's like, it doesn't matter how many words you count as long as you're putting in something in your passion. And I was like, you know what, that makes so much sense because sometimes you're like, I need to get like 20,000 words in, I have to do this, and you feel almost stressed. If you're stressing about something, some of your work probably won't flow as well. And so my routine is, so I get up, I take my kids to school. I still have a 3-year-old at home. So I will make sure he has some entertainment and then get the snack. And then I make sure I do some kind of workout in the morning. And then I go and I write for at least an hour. I do something to make sure that I'm like getting it flow out, even if it's like not even a couple sentences. I try and do something. So I try and do that, or I try, and if I'm like boxed in of what I should do, I start reading something that will maybe inspire me. And so right now I am reading Guild. So I'm loving it. It's pretty good. So yeah. So that's kind of my habits. I love being able like to open all the windows and everything, and just especially when it now spring, it's
Hmm.
just it's so nice. Or go outside and just type or write a few sentences that are like been lingering in my mind. So I try and do at least an hour a day. And sometimes it becomes a lot more because I get so sucked into it. And that's when it's great. That's when it's your passion, when you're just sucked into something, you're like, how many hours have gone by? So yeah, but I try and do it as much as I can. And if I'm not feeling the flow with my book, like writing or anything, then I go and I read another book, or I go and do I do horseback riding a lot. So I go and work with my horses, and just something to make sure that I always stay true to who I am and my passions. So yeah.
That's great. Now, when you're doing this, I mean, you're putting out a book, marketing book. Are you writing another one to go along with it, or are you doing a different genre, or
Yes. Okay. So
what's the
yes,
future plans?
I am writing a second book to Sounded Soul. And I'm about, I would say 30,000 words in. And so, but I mean, I have a whole editing thing, so who knows if it's going to be done. So I'm wanting, but it is a stem from my book. My book is one that you could read without being like, oh my gosh, there's a cliffhanger. I don't have a cliffhanger on my book. And because I didn't want it, because I'm like, I don't know what direction, because I kind of have an idea, but I was like, wonder if I want this to be a standalone. I didn't know, but now I'm like, dude, I've got something. And so I did leave some Easter eggs in my book that kind of will give you indication of there possibly being a second book, but not something like you're like, oh my gosh, like, why would you do this to me? Kind of thing, which I do love those books sometimes. I love the authors that can do that. I think it's amazing. But um, I do have that stem, and I'm pretty excited. It's actually from one of the characters from Scented Soul that is going to be in my second book. So I'm pretty excited. And
No,
then
that is exciting.
yes, yes. And then we are going to be doing for Fanx, the group of authors that I'm going to be with are doing an anthology. So a group where we each write a short story, kind of like how we write, kind of who we are. And so I'm also stemming a character that's not really huge or anything, but just someone from my book into a short story. And so everyone's doing that for Fanx and the anthology for our group, which is pretty cool. I am pretty excited about that. So we've just been working on that. So that one I have been working on the most. So at the moment, so that one is actually finished and just going through editing right now. So
Oh, that's exciting.
it is pretty exciting. So if you like, go to Fanx in Salt Lake City. It is September. I'm trying to remember the exact dates. It's like the last week of September, if I recall. 20
21st,
something.
22nd, 23rd, something like that.
Yes, something like that. And I'm like trying to remember exact dates, but you can meet so many amazing artists, authors. Like if you really like the fantasy world, I suggest go buy tickets now because and you can go and you can see other people's work. It's usually I go and I buy like a stack of books from people because I'm like, I cannot wait.
All of these are like mine.
Yes. It's well, I mean, you like read these books too from there's indie authors, there's hybrid authors, there's traditional authors, and like all of them are phenomenal. Like they're not I haven't read a book once that I haven't liked actually from those places because they're like passionate. They're like they worked hard. It's hard to get into Fanix sometimes too, being an author. Like you have to like step it up, you have to get help, you have to, so it's like it's they're willing to get in there, that they're passionate about their work. And so it's a really cool experience. And you can dress up, you can live your fantasies. It's great. I love it. And you meet famous people, like all of the different people from different movies and different comics and things. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And as an author, if you're trying to get into this business, it's a great way to network and to meet your favorite, not only your favorite authors, because there's lots of really big traditionally published authors. Like you mentioned, Christopher Polanyi, he was there a couple years
yes.
ago. Like
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Sanderson's always there. And then there's so many self-published and hybrid authors as well, who, in my experience, want to help and want to like reach out and help other people up. That like you can literally go and say, hey, like I have this book, how can you help me? And you'll find somebody there that be like, hey, like
Oh,
I
it is. I just barely started getting into Bookstagram and that world. And I'm like, they are so supportive. They're your cheerleaders. And I'm like, you need to find that group. Like, if you're wanting to write a book too, they give you so much advice. They help you, they support you. Like, I had so many people that were on my Bookstagram come to my book signing, and it's like, this is amazing. Like, it's just amazing to see the support that they give. And they want to help you. There's no selfishness at all in that area. They're like, dude, if you got this passion, we're helping you. So I love the atmosphere. It's not negative. It's everyone's so positive of each other, and they give like if no one asks for opinions, they don't give it. So it's like I think it's personally a very good situation to go in, especially if you're social media, because it's more positive reinforcement than negative. So I've really enjoyed the Bookstagram world. I mean, yes, it can be really hard sometimes if your followers aren't going up, but then you focus on the ones who are supporting you, and you think, dang, this is amazing. Like to even have one supporter, it's like, oh my gosh, one person is like loving my idea, and it's you just have to take it that way and not count followers or count this or that, which you can get lost in that as an author very easily. And
mm-hmm.
so my suggestion is just find your people and support your people. And I don't think you need everyone else if you have your people. So, and then you can bring more in, and it's just wonderful. I really like it. So,
And it is amazing the group that you're with at FanX, the Robert Zangari, there's going to be others. Like their books are so different that like if somebody comes up and talks to you and be like, hey, I'm not, you're cool and stuff, but I'm not a huge fan of like this type of story. You can be like, hey, like you like epic fantasy, go over here. Like if
yeah.
they go to the epic fantasy part and be like, hey, I'm looking for this kind of fantasy romance.
Yes.
They move over here if
And they can help you. Like they
yeah, they
don't
can
mind.
help.
Nobody
Yeah.
minds. Yeah, they want you to get what you want too. So I love it. It is a cool world. I'm pretty excited to go to Fanix this year because I've gone for years. My husband first he's like, you like fantasy, why aren't we going? I'm like, I don't know, is that a weird place? Like I didn't know what to expect. And my husband and I like to dress up and go every year. And I've always seen the authors, I've bought their books, I've talked to them, and really they're inspiring. They're very inspiring. Like everyone there worked so hard to get there. And it's just really cool to be able to go and support and to actually see if it's something that you want to dive into. So,
Right. And it's a great way. I mean, we talked about like meeting authors, but like if you have a book out and you want to go to self-publish, right? There's like so many artists that you can talk to who you might be able to network and have a lifelong friend that will, you know, put the best covers on your book to help you sell your book. So I mean, there's just huge amount of potential in different conventions that you can go to.
oh, it's
So
amazing. And the artists,
yeah,
they're incredible. There are so many incredible artists. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they can do beautiful work. I love the art I got, and then other people's art. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just phenomenal. There's so much talent out there. It is really amazing. And I think whatever route you want to go, I think just do it.
right,
Do it. Just leap. Like, what's stopping you? So
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And you know, you're working on a lot of stuff. I mean, you're a mother, your wife, you're working on your next book and this anthology. How do you stay balanced so you don't get overwhelmed and stressed?
Yes. So thank heavens I have a very supportive husband. Like find your person. My husband is my person. He helps me with everything too. Like if I'm having a hard time because well, I do have two boys that are in school full time, and so they're gone a majority of the day. So and I have a 3-year-old, and I give him my time because he's my number one priority. My kids and my family, they are my priority. I make it even in my book, I can't stress enough about how important family is to me. And so I always make sure family is put first. And taking care of your family too, you have to also take care of yourself because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to have a happy situation. So I will do a lot of horseback riding as well. I'll take my boys with me sometimes. I'll go alone sometimes. Me and my husband will do like small things together, maybe go on a small date here and there. I mean, it can get pretty busy, but I also make sure to give the time to just relax and rest and not stress. The older I get, the more I give my time to more meaningful, smaller things, like more important things to me than I do like trying to spread thin and do everything. So like if my kid has a field trip at school, I'll be like, okay, I'll sign up for this one. But then I'm like, I'll give you my time for this, at school for this one. I'll do this, I'll help in class this way. But then I'm not like going and I'm just not spreading like everything just to something, just to helping just the school. I focus on my kids, and then I make sure that an hour a day is just set just for my book. And then my kids know, and they have friends, they play with friends, or and then we always eat dinner together. It is a must for our family. We don't have friends over during that time. We just eat dinner and talk about our day and enjoy each other's company. So it's like I think you just have to find what's most important to you, and if it's like not something that is like something that gives you a huge spark or huge kind of passion, then I say don't do it. Don't put that extra stress on your shoulders. And I used to do that a lot as a younger mom. I was constantly worried about not giving them enough time or not doing this or not doing this. And it would just weight on my shoulders.
Hmm.
And I never gave myself time for writing. And so, because I was so worried about making sure that they were okay, but you also have to make sure that you're okay. And so I just make sure that my family knows that they're number one, and then that I know that every single one of my family members has a passion, and we need to make time for all of their passions. But just don't do the side things that will stress you out. Like if you can't volunteer for something or help with something, or if you don't want to like work those extra hours, money's nice. It's good to work. You need to work. Sometimes, especially in today's economy. But
Right.
if you don't need it and it's not a necessity, I say just put it on the back burner. Don't worry about it. That's really helped me over the years because I would say once 2020 hit, I kind of figured out I'm like what's important and why, and then a lot of moms are so busy juggling. I mean, you do have to learn how to multitask, but I just found that making sure that your priorities are put first and everything else on the back burner. And if you have time and if you feel like you have the energy to do it, that's fine. So I've learned to say no to things, which is really hard for me, really hard to say no because I do like to people please sometimes. But like I said, the older I got, I've a lot of people from Bookstagram too, like say certain things that I'm like, oh my gosh, that is inspirational. Like, why would I give my time to this random person that I don't even know instead of like this family member? Or why would I try and spread it or do certain things? And then there's times when I'm like, oh, we're going to order a pizza because I don't want to spend time cooking. You know, we're going to do this instead so that I'm not taking time away from this situation. Because, I mean, hands up to those who do it all because my mom was someone who did it all. She did it all. And I'm just like, that's amazing. Like,
Uh-huh.
she always was like doing everything. And then there's sometimes when I'm like, you know what? I can't do everything. Like sometimes I can do more, but I can't do everything. You know, I can only do so many things so I don't get spread thin. And so I would say for your mental health, make sure you put your priorities first and yourself because it just makes life so much easier, makes it so much more easy to live. So yeah.
That's great advice for anybody. Like, not for writers in general, but like anybody, like set your priorities and like don't let anybody like encroach on that. And I liked what you said. You have family first, and you have dinner for family time, and
Mhm.
that's something that's kind of lost nowadays because people are so run thin. That's impressive that you can do that every night.
We try every night, even like on sports nights or like if they have an event, like I make sure like my kids, I said, okay, pick one thing that you love. Because I'm not going to go and take you to 20 different things. As of now, do something that you love. And then we first have dinner or after the event, we have dinner because sometimes they'll be like, I want to go hang out with my friend now. I'm like, well, we're having dinner time. It's family time. You know, I've gotten better at being like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to spend some time with the family. And I just think it's better because it makes you closer. And
Hmm.
I'm very family oriented. My grandfather came over here when he was about 18, 19 from Germany and with his siblings, and they all bought houses together, like bought houses next to each other. And so I've grown up with my whole extended family, like being close family. And we've always said family is priority. And
Yeah,
so that was the most important thing that hit me because I mean, and those who don't have family, you have friends. You have some friends that are so important to you that you need to make sure you give them the time because they're giving you their time, and giving it like all of themselves to you. Like they're like supporting you, they're helping you. So you have to, I mean, I've just always been taught that family is a priority. And sometimes I would be like, yeah, family's great, I'm like, but we have to go do this. We have to separate. We have to go do this. You have to go here and here. And it just got kind of chaotic. And so I'm like, you know what? No, family, like is just very important to me. And like, I know somebody who doesn't have family and they make time for their friends. They make time for what's important for the people in your lives. And so it's helped me kind of become who I am. We are very, very close family members because we've grown up together and we all support each other. Like for big major events, if you can't make it, you say a thank you, or like for inviting me, and then show them how much you care about them. And like, I don't know. I just feel like it's just a big priority for my family. So, and I've been very family oriented.
no, that's very
Yeah.
impressive. Tori, do you have any tips or tricks or advice that you want to give to anybody who is starting this journey to becoming a
Yes.
full-time or a writer?
Yes. So it's gonna be hard sometimes. It's gonna be hard, but guess what? It's gonna be so worth it. So it is so worth it, no matter what route you take. When you hold that book in your hands and it's all of your hard work, and then you like see one of your family members or friends or even somebody that's just a supporter reading it and talking to you about it, 100% worth it. Just trudge through. Choose your route. Like first, I would say just write. Like don't worry about figuring out what you're going to do at first. Just write what comes to mind. And then once you've like got an idea, mostly finished, and you're like, okay, maybe I will start looking and thinking about if I want to do self-publishing or hybrid or traditional, you know, and you can even look into all of them and just kind of like decide what you want to do with your baby. So yes, so that's my advice. Just trudge through and enjoy it because sometimes people just take it as just a business, but really it is your baby. It's like it's your passions, it's your dreams, and your whole imagination just put into something that everybody gets to read. So really cool.
That's great advice. Now, how can people get a hold of you? What's some of your social media that they can follow you, and
Yes,
what's the
I am
website?
on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And then through Covenant Books too, you can go on their site and you can go in and you can find my book there, buy my book there as well, and see my trailer for my book. They make cool movie type trailer for your book. It's really cool. And then an interview there on YouTube as well. And my Instagram handle is at author Tori Diederich Lundell. I believe that's my handle. Let me look really quick because at this moment in time, I'm like, what is it? It is. Okay, it is author Tori Lundell. So author Tori Lundell Lundell. So author Tori Lundell. So that is my Instagram handle, and then you can just search my name or my book, and it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, iTunes, and through Covenant Books. So yeah, so you can find me and then talk to me. I love to talk to people. If you have questions or if you want to meet other people, like other authors, there's amazing authors out there. Amazing. Like their work needs to be seen. And so just go on, find my handle. I'm mostly on Instagram on the author Tori Lundell. And then I also have a TikTok that I just share like some reels about my book. So if you want to see those to kind of get you hooked. So yeah, get the fun things of Bookstagram. We do some fun things on there. And so it's fun to follow along all the authors. They really are very creative. So
They are. And then we mentioned FanX. What other events are you doing this year?
so I am doing the FanX. So far, I'm trying to figure out. I'm going to do some book signings this year in Barnes and Noble, but I'm also doing Crystal Market. So it is a German market during Christmas time, and it is in Salt Lake City, and it's Crystal Market. So it's a German event, really fun. You get to eat their food, enjoy like different traditions. It's a really fun place. Drink different amazing kind of drinks, and they're very based on like Germany, Norway, the European style, and gorgeous place. I love it. You can dress up in lederhosen. You can you can do whatever you want there, but come enjoy some good food, some great craftsmanship. Wow, I can't even talk. So a lot of woodworking and a lot of good food. Like I said, like the sweets in like Norway, amazing. If you like those kind of things, you need to go to Crystal Market. So for sure doing FanX in September and Crystal Market in December. So pretty excited. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
No, that is exciting. So if you go to any of those events, make sure you stop by and say hi to Tori, follow her on her Instagram page, and buy her book for sure. Tori, thank you so much for getting on with me today. I appreciate it.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Troy Podcast. Please subscribe, like, and share with your friends.